Hey guys, this is Simon, Coach Simon with TOUGH TRADER.com. Wanted to go through an algo setup this afternoon. Probably it wasn't the best algo setup necessarily, but it did provide a huge rollover. And so this is, even though I'm posting this to the public channel, this is really made for the members of the room and for the members who actually have a copy of the algo software on their desktop. And I want to take you through this slowly. So first, let's get started. First, let's erase all the um, information and kind of set this up really quickly where we're at through the course of the day. So number one, before I get started, okay, this is for educational purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results. If you'll take a minute to read through the legal notice, just pause it there for a second. Uh, uh, Essentially what it says is I'm not suggesting or recommending you buy or sell anything, much less equities, futures, options, or currency trading. There's a large amount of risk in trading. You have to have a trade plan. What I'm sharing is my trade plan on how I execute, and anyone who'd like to learn it is welcome to contact me, and I'm happy to teach it. So that's that. So let's first go and get some context on what's going on here. So number one, what the day looks like here. Let's see if I can pull this over or up, I should say. What did I do with my other chart? Here we go. There we are. So I'm going to flip back over to my main RTH chart. So to give a picture of where we're at, we're talking about Central Time, 1 o'clock, about 2 o'clock Eastern. So what you'll notice if we pull this all together here on the day, right, it's this little, what I'm talking about is this little peak right here, because this gave a beautiful roll down in both ES and NQ. Well, how did that set up? So number one, let's get some context for the morning. We opened up, we had an open drive lower. We just basically blew out anyone who was trying to buy the dip this morning. We traded the entire range from the high of yesterday back into the high and all the way back to the low. We just traded the entire range. It was very slippery in the morning. So that gives you context where we are over here. If we take a larger picture, and let me erase all the lines here from the course of the day. What this is an anomaly in the profile right here. It's a very important area. Within that profile, we were looking for rejection out of that area, both support. You can see earlier how that supported it. The backside test gave rejection. And then I was hoping to get one more push in. We never got that, but we got another setup. And so let's go through what that looked like specifically. So number one, what we're dealing with here is if you look from the swing high to the swing low, right? You can see this is the 50-60 right here. I'm going to highlight it so everyone can see it. This is the 50-60 for the day, and it brings up this line right here. And you can see we came right up to that 50 retrace, and that's where we rejected. And that's great. If you're a fib trader, you can go, well, I can just sit at the 50 retrace. But here's the problem with any fib retrace, right? How do you know it's going to work? What are the signs if you're a leverage trader? So what I am is a short-term, intraday leverage trader. I've got to be concise and, right, unlike what other people say, I have to maintain a high win rate. A 50-50 is fine. I have no argument with that as long as you have the risk reward. But my experience has been with most day traders, you have to have a high win rate if you want to stay in this business. That's been my experience. A lot of people say that's BS. I disagree with it. I've seen a lot. I've been coaching now for the public for 4 years. I've been coaching people who've either worked under me or when I ran a hedge fund just for a long, long period of time over the course of 20 years. And I think if you cannot pick out a high odds win rate, I think you are just in a world of hurt. That's my assessment. So now we're going to go and circle in on this little area. Okay, and in order to do that, the first thing I want to show is that when we are up here, we get two sell indications. So this is the first step in a stage of setting up a trade, right? You get a sell indication up on top, and then you get a second. That occurs at 11:30. Hold on, we're not quite where I want to be. Here we are at about 12:30 to 1:30 area, right? So I'm going to show you that roll down, what it actually looked like. I apologize. This is where I want to focus on, right? So you'll see we had a huge push. This bar tells me that we had a very high amount of delta. That's what the blue is, a very strong delta. I got a stack of deltas pushing in, which often leads to a reversal, right? and I got a sell bar. So what I needed next, I want to emphasize this, what I needed next is a big push down and a big negative delta. Okay, that is very, very important to my trading. Okay, it's step by step. So now I'm going to take you in, and so I'm going to take you step by step to show you what the setup was. So we get the trade armed. That's what that indicates, right? All of these are armed trades, but you'll notice number one, even though the trade's armed, we need to be able to get a high delta sell bar behind that armed trigger, which we never get all the way up through here, right? Secondly, we get a what I call a particularly important delta divergence when we're up here, and that's this hammer right here. You can see we had a negative delta. The bar closed up at the high, and it closed up on high volume. Additionally, within here, we had two high volume bars. That becomes very important to me. Those two high volume bars become very, very important. And the last piece that I need here, right? The last piece that I need is a heavy sell bar. And you'll see that I get that right here. Now, if we go through this process and I go, well, how am I going to figure out that I want to get that trade? So now we're going to flip. Okay, so guys, I went over this in the room this morning, right? We have the components. We have the trade is armed, right? We get the delta divergence. This one doesn't qualify, right? I want it to be a hammer or a shooting star. This one qualifies right here. We get two heavy volume bars. So I want to circle those off, right? If you look on a regular volume chart, this won't show anything exceptional. I assure you there was high volume in there. I want to take the point of control and I want to draw the volume profile in there, right? Why is that going to become important? Because you're going to see that when we come back across, that we're going to come back and test the point of control between these three bars right here. That's going to be your next entry. Now realize that gives you an entry. You've got the rejection right there on a positive. Notice that we get another divergence right there. That's what that diamond's indicating. We tested right in. We get the rejection, right? And you see from that, so look at the sequence from just I don't want to do too much speculating in terms of whether it's going to turn or not. I want to wait till I see the break. Consolidation, trade armed, divergences, heavy sell bar, right? 2 attempts heavy. This is a bonus, right? They attempted very hard to push up and they could not. We get behind our sellers. We get 2 very heavy sell bars here. And then notice we come right back to test the point of control. Once we test that point of control, we get another divergence right here. Notice that we had positive delta, bar closed at the low. And then look at, as you go through and look from here, look at the roll to the downside. That setup right there, if you do it in the most conservative fashion, which is exactly what I said, you wait for the trade to arm, okay? You wait for the trigger, which is, you got the bonuses in here with the divergences, right, and the heavy volume bars, but you wait for the trade to trigger right there. That is the trigger bar right there, right? And then once you get that trigger bar, right, now sometimes the trade will just fall away from you, but the least aggressive, we're all trading futures, so the least aggressive place to look for entry is on the backside test, and you have a choice. Either the point of control of these 2 bars or the other way to do that, guys, okay? Again, this is stuff you won't see on other websites. The point of control of this entire section, which really, what you can tell because these were high volume bars, really came from these 2 bars right here, and you can see it splits between the bottom of this body and the top of this body, and you can see we come right back to test it. Now that is exactly what I laid out in the market preview of what we were looking for a perfect ideal trade. And I want to stress this again, guys, for the public. I know you may be a little lost. You're welcome to visit us in the room if you like, where I go through more in-depth explanations. By the way, if you want to do that or you'd like a 5-day pass, that email is TRADERTOUGH, TRADERTOUGH @gmail.com. Okay, so coming in, right, pushing down, right? So I want to show you this. Sideways, pushing down, pushing back up, trigger, right? High volume bars, that's nice. It's an added, more advanced setup in there, right? The heavy, heavy, heavy delta breaks, the backside test, and then the following roll to the downside. From where you got the backside test, if you took that entry, you didn't wait for the rejection, you're talking about 2666 to eventually all the way down to 26.46. That had potential of a 20-point gain in there. Now I want to take you to one more place, the numbers bar chart, right? If you look within that numbers bar, something very interesting happened, guys, and it's important that you pay attention to this. Okay, notice this is the same picture, the same time frame, right? So what you'll see is we had a heavy push in, right? We get our trade triggered over here to the right. See that bar here? I'm going to pull this down. Excuse me. Trade triggered right here. I need to pull these down lower, but the trade is triggered on this bar, right? So number one, I want to see us ideally trade underneath this bar, right? Or get the setup. Ideally, we trade underneath this bar. There's really no question about it, right? The only problem with this whole trade is that we're sitting on VWAP. Now watch. Here's your delta divergence, right? Notice that there's no sell imbalances in any of these bars, right? Notice this is your first bar that sells with a sell imbalance, right? Now watch when you come down a little bit further, a little bit more over. Again, you're getting divergence. Notice this bar closes at the low and has a positive divergence, right? But you still don't have your heavy sell bar. Here's your heavy sell bar. Look at that whole thing. If you can see past that, see if I can stretch this out a bit. There you go. What you're seeing in here, right, is all heavy selling all the way through here, all the way through this bar. They get absorbed, right? You see you have this negative 5,000 delta. They push back up. Where do they push to? Right to the point of control of this bar, right? There's your rejection. Notice on your rejection bar, there's your sell imbalance. Notice the difference. When you get a rejection bar over here and you don't get a sell imbalance, very difficult to get an extension on that trade. The sell imbalances tell you that there's sellers there that are eager to get out of this trade, and that's what starts your roll to the downside. So that starts your first push, right? We get one more push back up. Now, I got to tell you, there's one more characteristic of this trade that's important to recognize. This is all happening on VWAP, and VWAP can be a challenge because you get a lot of institutional trades around VWAP, okay? And it's choppy. That's why this thing came back as many times as it did before finally rolling over. But importantly, this is our highest odds setup in ES, right? This becomes our highest odds setup. Trigger, right? Delta divergence, volume pushes as denoted by the stars, right? Heavy sell bar, backside test exactly back into the point of control. The rejection out of that had a sell imbalance, right? Now you have an easy entry, exit, stop, right? Depending on whether you want to use the swing high or the bar itself, right? You see the push to the downside. One more test back up. Again, you get heavy selling all the way through here. Look at the deltas increase all the way through here. And then you get your payday by having it roll all the way down from your worst entry on this trade, by the way, the method we use for entry, your worst entry on this trade, right, should have been this bar right here. That should have been your absolute worst entry, right, which would have been 26.61. Your absolute best entry on this trade should have been the 26, either 26.6450, depending on how aggressive you are. And for the most conservative trader, it should, or not quite as aggressive as shorting before we get the heavy delta, would have been the backside test of the point of control back over here at 66, right? And that would have been your best fill. But either way, whether you got filled on this trade at 61 or whether you got filled on this trade at 66, you had net a huge P&L trade to the downside, and that is a perfect algo setup trade. Whether you let the machine do the majority of the work for you, all you have to do now is focus on, is the setup correct? Do you have your stop in the right place? And then let your trailers run, right? Anyways, that's my 2 cents, guys. Hope that helped. I will continue to follow up in the room every day until we have this down pat. Talk to you later.